Hello everyone, welcome back again, and we have a follow-up to the recent episode where we went through the 1980s greatest fragrances, and I'm joined once again by the fantastic Chris from Scentland. Hello.
Scentland, the land of scent. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one, you know.
It has to be done. Absolutely great to have you on the channel again. I think people really enjoyed last.
Thanks very much for having me. It's always an honor and a great fun as well.
The feeling is very much mutual, and I think people really enjoyed last week's episode where we went through between us we picked 10 great fragrances from the 80s. So the logical thing to do next was 10 great ones from the next decade, the 1990s. So we're going to dive straight into that. We picked 5 each. And I said last time it was hard to leave some out, but it was even more difficult this time. There's so many. We could easily do a top 20 and still I'd have to leave some out. It's crazy. So we'll see. I'll ask Chris off camera, but maybe we'll do a part 2 to some of these videos because we could easily revisit some of these decades and still have some good ones. But okay, I'm going to throw it over to you, Chris. I think as we talk and go through the fragrances, we'll try and give a bit of background about the decade and our lives within it. Both of us grew up kind of as youngsters in the 80s and then came into our adulthood, I guess, really in the 90s. So it's formative years for both of us, but we'll find out as we go. So Chris, I'm going to ask you first, no rules here, but what is your first pick from the 90s?
Okay, first pick is when I turned 18 years old. Okay, 1990 was a great year. The Italian football World Cup was on, and that was good times, and tremendous fragrances that were coming out that year. I mean, and before I start, I would like again to emphasize that I'm picking today again fragrances that are still being manufactured today. Okay, because if I don't, and I got some criticism on that. But if I don't do that, then first of all, people are going to complain that, okay, it's great to see that, but it's not available anymore. So how, not everybody has the means to chase vintage fragrances or the time or the motivation. Okay, and the other one is that obviously I don't want to repeat myself, and we did a collaboration together with our most cherished fragrances, and some of them I don't want to repeat here today. Okay, so for example, if we talk about 1990, we talk about my favorite ever fragrance, Lagerfeld Photo, which I will not feature here, first of all, because I featured it already. Second, it has been long discontinued. Okay, so without further ado, my first fragrance, probably a little bit of a surprise, Adidas of all designer brands. Okay. This fragrance is called Active Bodies, one of the most ridiculous names I've ever heard. Okay, probably Active Bodies. Like, yeah, come on, you know. This came out in 1990, around the time when actually the World Cup was going on, or a little bit before that, somewhere in the springtime. And this is still being made exclusively by Coty at this stage. So it has been made but in Germany, and now it's made in Spain, I think. So it's not exactly the same like it was before, but it is a tremendously nice, bit piney, ambery, warm. It is not your gym bag type of fragrance. It's not that type of Adidas. It is warm, embracing. It's an autumn type of fragrance or springtime. It's aromatic, it's green, and it's really ambery. And it's one of the biggest compliment getters I've ever wore. And one interesting fact, I think Adidas kept it alive because it was very popular in Eastern Europe, especially in Poland. In Poland, the people are suckers for this. They love this. So the Polish people have tremendous taste because I think it is a tremendously nice fragrance and made it into my top 5 of the decade. So Adidas Active Bodies.
Wow. Okay. Brilliant. Again, didn't see that one coming, but I have heard you mention it before. I love that. And we can still buy that. But have you got the vintage bottle there?
No, this is already the Coty one. The vintage is basically almost impossible to get at this stage. But they're very good performance, everything. So it's good.
Okay. So people can still just buy the one that you can get now. Oh, brilliant. No, I might pick that one up
everywhere. Yeah.
Okay, superb. Well, Adidas, definitely not the house you would think of for great fragrances these days. I think I've tried Ice Dive, one of their recent ones, which is it's not terrible, but it's interesting to know they had something you rate. So I'm going to seek that one out. Great place to start then. Now, okay, so you've decided not to include stuff that we can't get, which leaves the way open for me to include a few of those. And I'll take the complaints if they come. So I know you like this one, and it is, of course, Balenciaga Pour Homme, a 1990 release. And I must thank you because it was your video years ago. Well, I think you had a little mini and you took it to the swimming pool or something, and you wore it after swimming.
Yeah.
And you were really extolling its virtues, and it really made me think, I need that. So the Balenciaga Pour Homme discontinued and getting really hard to find, sadly now. Lovely bottle design with this sort of marble effect on the cap. Again, very much, I think it's fair to say, an 80s kind of look about this one. And the smell kind of looks back to the 80s. Very, very rich, complex. I think we would call this an aromatic fougere scent. It's quite heavy. It's got freshness, but it's got a lot of rich masculine undertones. Apparently, it was the first designer fragrance, certainly for men, to include the note of oud. Now, you don't pick up on that, if I'm honest, at all, but apparently it has that in the note listing and was one of the first, if not the first, to include it. But you won't notice that massively. But it's rich, it's pungent. It's got this kind of, it does have a slightly exotic undertone to it. I think there's some beautiful sandalwood in there. And it's very much an 80s style smell that looks backwards rather than forwards, I think. So it's going to feel dated to a lot of people, but it's really, really high quality, good stuff, and a real treasure to have in my collection. I managed to pick up a 30 ml at a time when you could find those on eBay a few years ago, but now even the 30 mls excruciatingly hard to find. So, and again, a great year. I agree with you. 1990, that World Cup was hugely memorable. Maradona sort of on a downward slope maybe by this time. He was he got into a little bit of trouble with his personal life. I think it was perhaps some drug use and stuff going on, and
No.
yes, it was had a few extracurricular activities that perhaps weren't helping, and there was a very bad-tempered World Cup final against West Germany where the Argentinians lost. I think they had 2 players sent off, and they were really behaving very badly. And I remember Jurgen Klinsmann getting fouled and rolling over about 25 times to make sure he got the decision from the referee. So great times, and it were 2 great picks, I think, into classic fragrances. So back to you.
Yeah, so imagine just 1990. I mean, Balenciaga, Photo, Eternity, stuff like this coming out like in those years. It's incredible, like even that one single year what it has produced. But the 90s, in my opinion, are that decade, or the 90s is that decade that really was very innovative, that you know, some of the designers really took great chances and great creativity and put it into their fragrances and their work in order to see what new grounds could be discovered. So Balenciaga, for example, was still, as you say, a reflection a bit of the 80s, okay? But there's many fragrances that were looking for, like, for example, Eternity, looking forward to something newer, you know, something. And one of the most innovative fragrances of that decade and extremely successful was the second pick in my list from 1994, I think it was. Tommy by Tommy Hilfiger, because this one has created a smell that has never been there before. It is aromatic, but it has this apple pie kind of scenario with some driftwood and some really strange notes in there that are blended extremely well with a good performance. It reminds me, this fragrance reminds me of Friends, you know, the sitcom, you know, with Joey and all the rest, and Chandler and Ross and you know, all these characters. And it was fun, it was colorful. and it was extremely enjoyable. So is this fragrance to me. I wore it most memorably when I was actually in London in spring of '98. So whenever I smell this, I'm transported back to London in spring of '98. But I keep coming back to it, especially in the springtime. So it's just such a special, uplifting, and very positive and unique smell as well, in a totally new direction of fragrance, not looking back, but rather looking forward and creating a momentum and even a trend probably for fragrances like this to come afterwards.
Great one. Yeah, I think that's one of the first that we've had in the video where it's definitely sort of a new era coming in there, a new type of smell, Eternity, which perhaps neither of us have actually selected. But yeah, a great example of a whole new era of the way things were going. So yeah, great one to pick. And again, I haven't got that one either, strangely, but easy to get online and you won't have to pay a lot of money. So really a good one to check
using
out.
them because there's barely any juice. Well, this is a bit. Well, I have 2 of these, but I'm using these till today. So and they're still available. So fun.
Brilliant. Tommy from Tommy Hilfiger, another sort of a very 90s. I think to me that brand, I think, is kind of a heyday brand from the 90s that I seem to remember kids at school thinking that was a cool brand to wear or whatever. Yeah. Okay, brilliant choice. I'm going to move on then, and this one you can still buy. And it's one of the best bottles ever designed, I think, and it's Safari from Ralph Lauren, 1992 release. So this fragrance was the counterpart to the female version, which I think may have come out 89, 90, which has a really nice bottle too. But this one is just a superb bottle design, a sort of a whiskey decanter thing, and this rather nice crest here. It's themed after the idea of being out there on safari in Africa, of course, and some lovely kind of artwork and imagery around the advertising campaign. It's again a little bit of an 80s type of vibe. Maybe people compare it to YSL Jazz, which it is I think similar to. It's got lovely lavender and a sort of barbershop feel to an extent, a lovely leathery undertone. It's quite woody. It's definitely got a masculine aura about it, but a little bit less rugged and piney than the original Ralph Lauren Polo from '78, but definitely a smell that will seem of yesteryear to any young people trying it for the first time today. If you want to get picky, then most people say the old version where it says Cosmere on the bottom is preferable. And I have to say I'm lucky enough to have that, but you can still buy it and the bottle still looks fantastic. And I wouldn't discount checking out the modern version. So a really, really great fragrance. And 1992, another interesting year. I always think back, it wasn't a band that I was particularly into. I would have been 15 then, but there was a song that came out, and it's appropriate because today's Friday, and it was The Cure, Friday I'm in Love. And I have to admit, even at the time when I was into kind of heavy rock and stuff, I had to admit that song was so catchy and brilliant that I always think of that whenever anyone mentions the year 1992. So you could be wearing that and listening to that wonderful song.
Yeah, 1992 brings, I think, the movie A Few Good Men was around with Jack.
Okay.
I think that's very vivid memory to me. And in terms of music, Metallica was appearing, had the Black Album out.
Yes,
I enjoyed that a lot, and it was a fun year. I got into heavy metal in that year.
Right. Well, you and me both would have been into that. Yeah. I was really into the kind of 80s hair metal scene, and I got into it too late, just as it had totally gone out of fashion. And Twisted Sister, Kiss, Van Halen. So I was getting all those old LPs from the second-hand stalls, but just as everybody else was getting into Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana, which I didn't like that because it was too grungy for me. So as is always the case in my life, I was retro. Even back then, I was looking back to the 80s, but the music scene changed a lot.
Yeah. Even your picks are still, you can still see in your picks that the classy, the homage, the paying tribute to the classy style within the decade of change. Okay, so
it's true. I am. Yeah, it's true.
You can see really that your personality shines through your choices.
Yeah, I'm always resisting change. Actually, it's not always a good trait. Okay, so that's two we've had each. Back to you.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3 is a fragrance that I first met again in London in '95 at Selfridges. I walked in Selfridges, and downstairs there was this huge display of many fragrances, and one was heavily advertised, and that is, I'll try to make it somehow visible. Aramis Havana. That's a miniature of the how it used to look, and this is my absolute favorite fragrance packaging in terms of box and bottle ever. I really love this. I love the theme that runs with these leaves, this sort of exotic touch, and the bottle, this cone-shaped bottle with this color, this deep blue frozen glass, brilliant. And the good thing about it is that, well, first, it's a spicy. Again, this could have been like an homage to the earlier days, to the 70s, 80s, because it's a really deep, rich tobacco barbershop bomb. I must almost say it is really very heavy, and it was somehow going against the trend of the CK1s or the Tommy by Tommys in the mid 90s. So it was like, wow, and it then got discontinued. But the following at that stage was so strong somehow, a very loyal following, probably not masses, but very loyal people, including myself, that we kept actually knocking at the door of Aramis or Estée Lauder, if you will, to bring this back. And they actually brought it back along with their entire classy line in the gentleman's collection. So this is how it looks today, okay? And questions come up, is it exactly the same? And unfortunately, it's not exactly the same. I feel that the old one, the vintage one, is a bit deeper. It has a deeper, kind of more boozier, kind of darker aspect to it, and the dry down is different as well. This still very much, the new one resembles the old one, except for there is a bit of this depth missing, and the dry down is too much going toward the vetiver note, which I don't like that much. But still, it's the Havana. Still, it must be there in my top 5 choices of the 90s, because this was really that blew my mind. I remember that, and still today, and the performance is fantastic. So it's really, really, really nice stuff here, and I'm happy that they kept it alive.
Yes, it's really great that they resurrected a lot of those in that modern lineup. And another one you can get very affordably, and I've actually got both versions, and I didn't maybe spend enough time on them to pick up on those differences that you mentioned, but I certainly don't think the modern one is bad at all. I think it captures much of what the other one seems to have. So definitely a really good one to check out. Quite, as you say, quite a heavy fragrance, and it's kind of, I think some will love it and some may not, so beware. But hey, it's only like £20 or less, so it's a fun one to pick up and take a gamble on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, lovely choice. Getting into the mid 90s now. Now I've got God, yeah, let's see what's going to be next. Okay, here's one that I think is a bit more a 90s smell, in my opinion. Okay. And I've kind of done some. This is kind of wrong, because we've both maybe left out Egoist from Chanel from 1990.
I was gonna, if you're going to feature it. I'm not going to feture it because I thought you're going to feature it. But for me, this is the absolute king.
Well, I'm going to let you feature that, because I was going to. Yeah, I'm going to let you do that one, and I'm going to do the flanker first. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to include Platinum Egoist. So it's probably not as great a fragrance in many ways, but it came out a few years later, 93, I think. And apparently, I think Egoist was not a huge commercial success, I read. So they kind of thought, well, what can we do? And they brought out a flanker called Platinum Egoist, or Egoist Platinum originally, and I've got the old version where the Egoist name came first. And this is a completely different smell. I don't think there's really any great similar. I don't think there's any continuity between the two smells. This is a very fresh, I think almost a slightly metallic smell to this one. I pick up on something a little bit. It was almost like if Chanel had created their own take on something like Cool Water from Davidoff or something like that. A really kind of fresh smell. Again, people say a kind of barbershop aura. There's lavender. There's lots of floral tones, and this almost slightly synthetic, soapy, metallic thing. And I've heard people make negative comments that it sort of smells like an estate agent or whatever whatever that means. But it may be something not that classy. I don't know. But to me, it's a very 90s kind of smell. It's got this fresh aura about it. A little bit more synthetic smelling and this kind of shiny metallic vibe. I think it's a great performing fragrance. And I think this was something you would smell around a lot, and things a bit like this in the 90s. So Platinum Egoist is my controversial pick from the mid-90s from the House of Chanel.
Yeah, I wore that one, and I this was not to be part of my top 5 here.
Okay.
I just thought
you can have an extra one if you want.
Yeah, last time I did one as well. No, yeah,
it's fine. Yeah,
I really appreciate that. No, this is really, to me, this has been released in 1987 actually, before, by Chanel under the name of Bois Noir, the Black Woods. Okay, and it wasn't really appealing. The name was somehow somehow Chanel wasn't really happy about the sales and the name and thing, but the smell, they said that this can be something, so they created this huge advertising campaign in 1990, and I think in Brazil somewhere, with Egoist, yes, with the 30 women on the balconies opening the window and the doors, fantastic. And I love this fragrance because obviously it's complexity, it's very special smell, it's warmth, and it's soft, lingering, fresh spiciness. But I had a Swiss boss that I used to work for, and he wore this, and this made such a lasting impact onto my brain that whenever I smell this, this is a huge time machine for me. So this is why I wanted to because I think this is really an absolute 90s masterpiece. C'est la vie.
I agree. I think it had to be in the video, and you can definitely pick that one up still today. I think it still smells pretty similar to the old. I don't think you have to worry. So it's really, really good. And Chanel, I rarely think that their fragrances get too messed up over time. They seem to hold up really well. Going right back to the Chanel Pour Monsieur, still smells sensational if you go into a department store today. So brilliant. Thanks for including that one. Okay, so staying in the mid-90s, and one that you can buy today, but I'm sorry guys, again, some people say you want to get the old one, and it's a house that I don't think we've featured in any of the videos yet, because it's Dolce & Gabbana. This was a 1994 release, and it's the original Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme, and a much younger fashion house. I think they only came into existence in 85, Dolce & Gabbana. So it was really the 90s when they exploded as a more kind of modern, youthful fashion brand, I guess. And this was their first masculine release. And it's exquisite. It is a fresh fragrance. It has beautiful citrus opening notes. People always mention a tobacco accord that's in there, which I think gives it this little twist, but it stays very much in contrast to Havana, completely different type of scent, but it has the one thing in common, this sort of tobacco note. But this is a very fresh green leafy tobacco, lovely kind of earthy vetiver woody undertones, a sort of clean musky thing, very beautiful, fresh, and just optimistic, happy type of fragrance, spring or
Italian,
summer.
and so Italian.
Yes, very Italian. I think you made a thing last time where you said one of the fragrances made you feel like going to a nightclub in Monte Carlo, and this definitely has. One of my friends actually smelled this, and he's not into fragrances, but he said it was a night out on a summer holiday. You've just had a really great day in the sun, and then you go back and you shower and you get changed. You put on a fresh shirt and you go out for a few drinks. And this is the kind of thing you'd want to spray on, and just you'd be in a great place wearing this. So Dolce Gabbana Pour Homme. You can buy the modern one. I don't think it's as bad as some people say. I still think it's worth checking out. But if you can get the one with the sticker, made in Italy, it is worth it. And you will find that maybe on eBay if you search, because there were tons made back then. And the year 94, one thing that really sticks in my mind, of course, there was another great World Cup in the USA, which was a novel idea. And it was Brazil, Italy in the final. I think Baggio missed a penalty, didn't he, to give Brazil the thing, which was, a shame for him because such a great player. But Brazil finally won the World Cup after a little bit of a gap. But the tragic thing that always sticks in my mind was Ayrton Senna's death in 94. And I vividly remember the day. It was one of those kind of things you remember where you were when that happened. So I was down. I wasn't watching actually because I wasn't a huge Grand Prix fan, but I was playing football with my friends. And one of their dads came down and said, "Oh, Ayrton Senna's dead," which was horrific. Can you remember where you were the day that happened?
I exactly remember the moment, but I'd rather not say because it was a very, very private, almost intimate scenario.
Oh wow!
It's true, but it's true that I totally remember it, and I just kept looking at this, and these people kept flocking in and holding this big towel above him, and I said, "Oh, this is especially what happened the day before with Roland Ratzenberger."
Yes,
and Barrichello having that horrible accident as well. That was really, and Kurt Cobain just a few days or weeks earlier, blew his brains out. So it was like a wicked time, that part. So I vividly remember. But for me, it ended well because I was a huge Michael Schumacher still am a fan, and the first in 1994 saw the first World Championship win of Michael, and I was very happy for him. And Benetton, the team that he was racing for. So, but 94 was I think I had my first job in 94 also. So it was a memorable year.
Great times. But you're right. That was a really sad weekend. And the day before another, just in case people watching don't know, the day before another racing driver, Roland Ratzenberger, had also crashed and died in the qualifying session. So it was and there was another crash with someone else, which luckily wasn't so bad in terms of the result, but it looked like it could have been. And just a really cursed, strange weekend, that one. But we'll never forget it. And great to hear you got your first job. At that time, I was just coming up around 16, 17. So I was sort of around the time we do A levels here. So I'd started to go out and discovered the joys of alcohol. And thank God for that, because I was very awkward and shy. And
give me that. Give me that.
I wish I could, but thank God, in some ways for alcohol, because I don't think I'd had any experience with women until I managed to get some Dutch courage, which suddenly enabled me to interact with the opposite sex in a way that I wasn't capable of when I was sober. So I remember that was quite fun. Okay, moving swiftly on, back to you for your next choice, please.
Okay, the year is 1996. And the fragrance that's still around and I still excessively use every year, ever since, from the get-go, is this little baby here, Lacoste Booster. And I use this because when I first smelled this, I thought to myself, oh my God, this is way too much. Like eucalyptus and mint on a light woody base. Like it blew my brains out, almost like woof. And the sprayer is extremely a nice sprayer. It's like you're taking a shower in this thing. But I was using it doing sports, football in the heat, and it really helped in some very tireful or very tiring matches in great heat. And spraying this onto your skin actually gives a minty eucalyptus burning sensation that is really like boosting you. That is very amply named. The booster is really what it is all about. And up until today, if we go anywhere, my wife uses it as well. We just use this anytime when it's really. It's great for a hangover actually as well. Anytime you need to be boosted, your senses need to be reawakened to get yourself going again, or to continue to keep going. This is a perfect Booster. Okay, so Lacoste Booster definitely, and it's still around, still the same. Greatly affordable, great performance. It's not everybody's cup of tea, so I will probably get some bashing over this, but it is, and it's no sweetness, absolutely no sweetness. It's bone dry.
Right.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I love that you've given us, first of all, a lot that people perhaps haven't heard of, and that they can all go and buy quite inexpensively if they fancy ones. That's a really great thing about your list so far. You've just, this I keep saying it's a really difficult list to pick, and you've just made me think, look, I've got to go and grab one that I wasn't going to include. So if you just bear with me 2 seconds, I've decided it's wrong not to include this. I'll be right back. Hang on. Okay, sorry about that.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I was trying to be entertaining in the meantime.
Maybe I'll cut it. We'll see. Maybe not. Depends what you did. Okay, so
a little dance, Batman's head on a lance.
I got two. I'm going to cheat. You did it last time, so I'm going to cheat too. So I thought, let's have something that really is a quintessential 90s fragrance, because some of mine have been a little bit, retro smelling or whatever. And these two really were kind of part of a new movement in fragrance, I think. So we've got Acqua di Gio from Armani and L'Odyssée from Issey Miyake. And these were both mid-90s. I think this was 94, the L'Odyssée. And I think the Acqua di Gio was 96. And these were part of the new wave of aquatic men's fragrances with this very fresh, I think the note or the accord is called cologne, that is perhaps in them both. This one, the Issey Miyake, has yuzu, the Japanese citrus fruit, as a note, and is a really, really kind of dry, fresh, sharp fragrance, but with this sort of sea spray or this aquatic aura. Very, very fresh. None of the old ruggedness of some of the 80s fragrances. And likewise, Acqua di Gio, just a very, very kind of citrus with this aquatic, I think quite not unpleasant, but a rather synthetic sort of overall aura, and a completely new type of thing. And perhaps we can even talk about Calvin Klein's Eternity as being another one that was going in that direction. So I thought, I've got to put those in from the mid-90s. This was the kind of thing young guys were really gravitating towards back then.
Absolutely, and kudos. Although it's not necessarily I actually strongly dislike Giorgio Armani's Acqua di Gio, not because of Giorgio Armani, but because of the smell for some reason. I don't know. But
it's probably not my favorite either, if I'm honest. But
But you have to show it, because it is one, along with CK1 and probably Tommy. These are the ones that are the total new direction and very successful new direction as well, because you have to remember that there were many new directions taken, like Givenchy Insensé. Remember Givenchy Insensé with the yellow box, and that was a beautiful floral. There you go. I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Keep going.
Givenchy Insensé was, in my opinion, the most innovative, beautiful, creative fragrance probably of the decade, along with Egoist, but it failed because the market wasn't ready. Same thing for Davidoff Good Life. It was a total new direction, a total new smell. If I'm not mistaken, there was a great fig note in that.
The Good Life.
What about Adam by Joop with the fantastic tomato leaf stuff? So there were fragrances that were really trying, and brands and designers really trying to break out, and some managed to hit the nerve and the taste of the audience, and some did not. So some are still available, and today are classy and still available, and some have been forgotten, like Insensé, for example, probably. And maybe Good Life, although I see a lot of people asking me about Good Life, if it's still available, where to get. So the 90s were very colorful, extremely colorful decade.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, there was some really innovative stuff. Actually, some of these, I'll just very briefly sort of touch on a different subject. Some of these classics have been resurrected by some of the clone houses. I know you can get a clone of Good Life, I think, from Alexandria Fragrances, of course, doer fragrances have resurrected a few from the 90s. How do you feel? Because I know, Chris, I don't think you ever feature clone fragrances on your channel, but would you perhaps make an exception in the case where the fragrance is discontinued? Is it something you'd ever be interested to try, or what do you think about that?
It's difficult with the clones. I featured one clone, which was a clone for Adidas Active Bodies, actually, and Adidas brought back Active Bodies because the clone was so successful.
Wow.
Especially in Poland, yeah, because it's a clone made in Poland.
It's a Polish house, isn't it? Yeah, I remember you mentioning.
Sorry, Athletic Man. I think that was the name.
Just say it one more time. Sorry.
La Rive Athletic Man. That was the clone of Adidas Active Bodies. Still around, actually, and it's very good. It's even actually closer to the original Active Bodies than the current Active Bodies itself. So wow, well done. But in general, yeah, I'm rather not a fan of those, and I haven't really therefore ventured into any of the houses that actually do this type of copying. Although somehow I can upload, somehow I could upload it as well, because at least they keep it alive or resurrected, as you say. But to me, somehow, if I'm smelling Davidoff Good Life, I have to have the bottle. I have to have that the box, the bright green box that had. And same goes for Very Valentino, for example, or What About Adam by Open. I have to have somehow the original, and this is where you get addicted to getting vintage stuff that then ends up costing you a lot and ends up in the back of your wine cooler.
Okay, yeah, good point. I totally take your point that you want the box and stuff. Even if the smell was the same, it's not the same feeling, is it? And yes, I found some of them, they've nailed it. And maybe because of the ingredients not being available, there's somewhere they haven't. So it's hit and miss, but they're worth a thought for some viewers, maybe. Okay, well, I think that came indirectly from my pick of the two aquatic ones. So I think we're back to you now, Chris.
Okay, it's my last one, right? And for the last one, I stayed with the year of 1996, and it's not going to be a major surprise because everybody mostly know that I always loved and still love Gianni Versace, the late great genius. And in '96 he presented the Dreamer to the market, which was a total new direction, and with its soft floral tobacco. It was something that, to me, I had a very special time in '97 when I used this. I had the best year of my life, 1997, and especially the late summer and the autumn of that year. And I extensively used this in that period. So it's a great emotional tie as well. So I'm not saying that this is the best tobacco, floral, or whatever. It's just extremely emotional. And if you would now say as a viewer of this, okay, can he not get better? Where's the punchline, Chris? Where's the punchline, Scentland? Give us something. Your last fragrance is the fifth fragrance. Must be some punchline. I'm gonna give you gonna live up to my reputation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, because I can do better in regards to Versace, the Dreamer. Okay. Buckle up. This is the so-called Millennium Edition.
Oh my God.
Yes, exactly. Let's put it this way, right? Yeah. This is the Millennium Edition, released in 1999, and it has this special box, and in the box, this fantastic bottle wrapped around a metallic frame for the glass bottle, okay, and this is 100 ml. I got this in Vienna, and I like, this is like an object of almost like a saint or something that I think this is like really Gianni Versace bottled, okay. And I keep this in a special place in my collection, and I really think, and this is how the small box looked like.
I recognize the style of the box as being the vintage, although that's a sort of fancier version, but it's the same font. Yeah, so it's different. It's the vintage, obviously, the vintage formula.
Yeah. So So as you can see, there's barely anything left in the small one, but the big one, this one is a holy grail, really, in terms of really being holy. Like, and I use it, but only in autumn. So I'm not really often onto this fragrance, but this one is just so special. Look at this. I mean, it's so beautiful. Like, wow.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So that was my punchline for today's top 5 in regards to the choices that we make for this decade.
Okay, brilliant punchline, and yeah, lovely to have that that Millennium Edition, as they called it. And I think, yeah, it's interesting to note that to some extent we love these things because we love the smell, but I think probably both of us have a certain collector element that it is nice to have the thing in the box.
Yeah.
And even if I know I'm not going to use that enough, that it's in my regular rotation, I just like having it in the collection for some strange reason. So there is always that element to this hobby, but we do want you to spray them and enjoy them as well, folks, of course. So I guess it's back to me with my last choice, and I wanted to get something more towards the end of the decade. Neither of us have included, because it's probably not either of our big favorites, but I should just perhaps mention La Malle from Jean Paul Gaultier as one of the titanic, I think, releases of the decade, with its iconic bottle with the man's torso. And I very vividly remember Jean Paul Gaultier. I don't know if you ever saw this program where you are, but it was a program called Eurotrash with Antoine Decaune, which was on in the UK, and Jean Paul Gaultier was the co-presenter, amazingly. And they were very irreverent and cheeky and showed strange clips of stuff from all over Europe. And it was a kind of a late night show, and it was quite naughty for the time. So there would be a little bit of boobies and stuff in the program, which back then you couldn't see very easily. So it was something that was quite naughty, but very kind of fun and funny to watch. And around the time that he was on that program, I mean, an incredible character he was, really. I think he played up to this caricature of himself as this cheeky, impish Frenchman in a kilt on the show. But I quite liked him, and they were very saucy, the jokes they used to do, the pair of them. And you had people like Victoria Silvstedt coming on, scantily clad models and stuff, and it was all very entertaining and perhaps mildly titillating for a young teenager at the time. Anyway, or someone about 20, in fact. But let's move swiftly on. So my selection is going to be Dolce & Gabbana by for Man. And Chris, you mentioned fragrances that were perhaps not understood or received by people, and it's no wonder this one maybe struggled with this not very manly looking bottle. Let's be honest. It looks like a lady's product of some kind to me. The incredible zebra skin design from, forgive me for including 2 from Dolce & Gabbana, but it's a lovely fragrance. It's kind of powdery. I think it takes some cues from La Malle from Jean Paul Gaultier, in that it has lots of lavender, a powdery feel, and it's sort of barbershop-ish but sweet at the same time. Beautiful sandalwood and nutmeg, creamy, really, really beautiful fragrance. But my suspicion as to why it didn't last very long and was discontinued perhaps early 2000s is perhaps because By Man it's a bit of a strange name. And the bottle design is perhaps not going to appeal to with people looking for a manly fragrance. I don't know. But a really, really great scent. 97 was the year, and sadly discontinued and hard to find now. Great story for me when I found it, because I was always thinking, oh, well, if I ever want to get that, I'll have to spend a lot of money to buy one on eBay. So I never did. But one day I walked into an Oxfam charity shop here, and there was this little...
Actually, I've seen that post, and I told my wife, Dan just walked into this thing and found a bottle of By Man. Wow.
It was the dream. It was the dream scenario. It was like going to a car boot sale and someone has, oh, that's my granddad's old watch and it's a Rolex for a tenner. It was that kind of thing for me. It was £14 and I just couldn't believe it. So it was pretty much full as well. And I obviously snapped it up. So that was very lucky, because you very rarely get any kind of good fragrances in a charity shop. It's not really a place you'd go, but occasionally you do sometimes. But this was amazing to pick it up. So always so happy to have in the collection. Great sort of objects to have on your shelf. Yeah. and a lovely fragrance. There is a good clone of it called it's by Dua Fragrances, and it's simply called Pour Homme. Forgive me for plugging that, but I just, as an honest service to viewers who do find that they would love to try this or remember it and can't get it, it's one of the ones where it's very, very correct in the smell. So you will get a great version called Pour Homme from Dua. But if you can pick up the original, lucky you. But it's so hard to find, and everyone seems to know what they've got usually now, so they're expensive on eBay.
Wow, that's a stunning purchase there, and it is Dolce Gabbana were always kind of much like Gaultier actually, it's kind of tickling and kind of trying to go against the flow and trying to do
absolutely,
not now anymore, but and I think Stefano and Domenico, I think, were the couple. I think they separated, so it's not anymore the case. And what's against the flow today anyway? It's very weird times today. But the 90s were, a good playground for people like that had the courage to go against the trend, go against the flow, and that's obviously what they did. But maybe they didn't got understood that way. But still a great, fantastic fragrance. Absolutely agree. What? Let me ask you a question. What would be the song that you would pick of the 90s that is sort of closest to you? What would be that when you hear that? Oh yeah, 90 whatever. Just the 90s,
The 90s. I'm just going to think first. I honestly think I got to go with the one I already mentioned. I think Friday I'm in Love by The Cure. Captures something of the optimistic feeling of a spring day in the 90s. Somehow, I'm not sure if it was connected. No, it wasn't. There was one song I didn't like that was connected to this film. With the film of the 90s that I remember is probably 4 Weddings and a Funeral with Hugh Grant. I'm not sure if that was big where you are. You know that one?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I never liked Hugh Grant though.
Right, yeah, I can understand that, but I remember that being a film of the 90s that was really just felt very nice. When I look at it now, it reminds me of how people dressed and stuff from the 90s. So that would be my film pick, and I will go with that song. So I'll throw it back to you. What would your song of the 90s be?
My song was, or would be there was a song, I always forget who performed it. Deep Blue Something was the band's name, and Breakfast at Tiffany's. And I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? You know that one. For some reason, It was such an upbeat something, and it had such a good energy and good flow that I really, up until today, I go to I don't know, Tesco shopping and I said, what about that? And people look at me like, who's this crazy guy? And in terms of movies, I think it's The Few Good Men with Jack Nicholson, Demi Moore, Tom Cruise. I think that was a film when Colonel Jessup is sitting in the court and Nicholson is just like stunning, absolutely stunning in that movie.
Right. Okay. I don't think I've watched that film. I'm going to check it out. Great pick of the song. They were the kind of band and a kind of type of music that was very new and very 90s. I think. Yeah. Even the Friends theme tune had a similar kind of vibe maybe about it. But I think. Yeah, I think it's a great pick. And I'll just one other film that I think is a standout film was Dumb and Dumber from the 90s, which still kills me to this day. I know it's pretty low level humor, but it does crack me up.
It was a more carefree time. No, like it was a more easygoing thing. Everybody was busy with what Bill Clinton is doing in the Oval Office and stuff like, and apart from sad occasions like with Senna or Lady Diana or Gianni Versace that were really
we should probably of course Versace in 97 and Lady Diana the same year was a huge big thing. It was.
It was a memorable decade, definitely.
Yeah, it definitely was when you look back. Of course, there was the unbelievably awful. The Yugoslav war was going on right in the middle of it. That's
a shame, really, without going into politics. But it really was in the heart of Europe. That's what you're saying, and it really was mass genocide. So it's And when you go there today, this is such a beautiful country and so beautiful people. Serbs, the Croats, the Slovenians, the Macedonians, the people in Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Everybody is so lovely and great. This just so shows you how politics can really mess up things, you know.
It does, and it just shows you how the thin veneer of civilization that we take for granted can easily disappear with a few things going wrong. I remember, I'll just briefly say, as a kid, a teenager, when this whole thing happened, I had no idea that Yugoslavia had Serbia and Croatia. I just thought they were Yugoslavian. I didn't even know there were different religions and stuff there. So, you know, it was like, what the hell? We always thought that was one of the most civilized countries in Eastern Europe. People used to go on holiday there. You know, even before the fall of communism, my auntie used to go to Yugoslavia. I guess it would have been Croatia, and it was, you know, it was so lovely and Mediterranean. So it was so shocking, and so many of those kind of terrible things happened. But there were some great memories too, and a great decade to grow up in and be alive and young in. And I guess that if I'm lucky, I might get you back for the 2000s. But I also want to. I think we should also go back and do the 70s too.
Oh yeah, exactly. When we're little babies.
Yeah, we weren't wearing aftershaves back then, but since then we've discovered a few, I think. Okay, Chris, it's been such a pleasure as ever to have you on the show. It's Friday, and we're in love with fragrances.
That's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
I hope you'll be having a good bottle of wine tonight, and I'll be having a few strong beers, no doubt.
And tomorrow, for me, tomorrow morning, breakfast at Tiffany's.
I hope so. Yeah, enjoy it. All right, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Viewers, thanks for watching. Whatever you're doing in life, remember, let's project. And don't forget to check out Chris's channel, which, of course, is linked in the description. Everyone, have a great day, whatever you're doing. Bye-bye.
Bye.